Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we're going to be checking out a few tracks from an act named Discovery, the first of these titled A Knock at the Door. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves there a Spotify page on the page, and then we're going to go to the track and we're going to listen through it from start to finish and we're going to hear what we think. And here we have A Knock at the Door, so let's go. Kind of somber sounding piano line, isn't it? I kind of dig it though.
Living alone at the top of a hill, no one to find me but cold frosty chill. When a noise did disturb me from out in the night, outside my window in shimmering light, there was a knock at the door.
Stellar. Great introduction of the piano and vocals there.
This place I came to be left well alone, hiding away from the people below. No word has been spoken between them and I. Never before have they knocked at my door, and yet a knock at the door, and yet a knock at the door. They keep far away, for well they should know my temper is cruel as the icy winds blow. When once I was welcomed inside of their halls, now only memories that I can't recall. And still they knock at my door, and still they knock at my door.
Great increase in intensity of the piano lines.
Memories of you, living at the top of the hill, a terrible witch with fire in her heart. But you never meant to do any harm. The flames grew higher as you sat and cried.
Beautiful. Fantastic change of pace there.
Living alone at the top of a hill, no one to find me but cold frosty chill. No noise to disturb me from out in the night, not out my window but shimmering light. Now there's no knock at the door. Now there's no knock at the door. Now there's no knock at the door.
I mean, that track there is fascinating. I think that A Knock at the Door, with its piano and vocal arrangement there, is really simple, yet incredibly effective. It's really all that you need to carry us through the entire 3 minutes 25 of it. The story itself, I think it's about someone. They're alone, the cold is by themselves, maybe they've been isolated. Is that they think that, do people think that they're the witch? And they're like left alone and they're like, there was like, they didn't mean any harm, but then like there's just this misunderstanding and maybe there was like punishment laid out to whoever was like the rage that was built there, the fury there built up, and then there was like a fire, and then like you couldn't put out the fire because you were crying because maybe you couldn't control it. Is that it? Is it someone who's got so much power that they don't know how to control, that they're misunderstood and is basically just left in a position where they're going to sort of be forever alone with only the cold chill as their company? Hopefully I'm not too far away from that. I think that the vocal tone, the singer's clearly talented. They have a great vocal technique with a hit chest voice there. Wonderful legato passages there. Effortless vibrato on parts there. Just a really poignant sort of tone post-production wise as well. There's a great clarity to it. It's not overproduced. They were not trying to sort of saturate it. There was an interesting, almost like a kind of a glow to the end of that last sort of interlude run there where we kind of faded out. Maybe we sort of delayed back on ourselves to have a reverb at the end there to kind of push out on the sides of the stereo field as the piano picked up and pace there. But I mean, like, I just think the vocals are really well handled. Fantastic focal point of the mix. The keys as an accompaniment through this track there, going between verses and choruses and the occasional interlude and the structure were wonderful as well there. We had a bum, 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 working between different triads there and inversions. And the bass line was had a great groove to it. It was almost hypnotic. You had the vocals of the focal point, but just it was mesmerizing sort of dance you had there, walking through someone's sort of their story and their misery and loneliness at the end. I think it was just such a masterstroke to have the piano change their chord progressions to become a bit more dire sounding in that interlude section as they're talking about the fire that builds slowly into it, that crescendo, for things to come quiet afterwards after the flames sort of cease and they're left alone there. The dynamic range matched the intensity of the vocals. The performance was tight, great chemistry between the members involved, because I think this is a two-piece, isn't it? You've got Tooze's knack for writing quirky folk pop tunes and Jamie's penchant for complex harmony and Beatles-inspired music. The result is a revival of 60s and 70s pop and rock with a modern twist. Absolutely smashed it. Had a great time with this. We're going to move on to track number 2 in a moment with just the understanding that the studio production and post stuff was absolutely phenomenal on this. Things were well leveled, and it's a good start. We've now got Night Stop 3, number 2, track number 2. Oh, and drums in this one, cool. Is it like 4/4 to 2/4? Is it like 4/4 to 2/4 or like 6/4?
Have you heard about Night Stop 3? It's the place that I want to be, floating through the cold of space, where our bodies will leave no trace. Maybe I'll stay a while, rest my eyes from the world, and settle in to a perfect world. Fly with me at Night Stop 3.
Gorgeous resolution there.
Night Stop 3's open every day, always helpful in any way. Why not ask for their premium rates? Night Stop 3 will accommodate. Maybe I'll stay a while, rest my eyes from the world, and settle in to a perfect world. Fly with me at Night Stop 3.
The hi-hat shuffle though.
I know you're wondering, what could I see in you? Break through the silver glass and tell you it's not true. I'm leaving for the cosmos, why don't you come with me? We'll see the world of creation, we'll stay at Night Stop 3. Maybe I'll stay a while, rest my eyes from the world, and settle in to a perfect world. Fly with me at Night Stop 3. Maybe I'll stay a while, rest my eyes from the world, and settle in to a perfect
Great harmony there.
Fly with me at Night Stop 3.
No, that was smart. No, that was a good choice there. I like that. Okay, so that was track number 2, Night Stop 3 by Discovery. I'm kind of, because I've just realized I can make the art big when I click it on Spotify after like 1,000, after 1,000 videos. To be fair, I don't think you could always do that, but maybe you could. I'm just tripping. Night Stop 3. I think it's about like maybe dreaming and going to a place where you can sort of sleep and go up to space and kind of it's just a really great time and fun going through the cosmos and you're kind of inviting someone to go there with you. It's got sort of this mystical kind of story time fantasy element to it, which I really appreciate. I like the playfulness and innocence of it. It's got I like the vocal harmonies that we had within this. We have that continued solid vocal technique that I mentioned in the previous track, but it's also that there's like kind of like phaser or flanger effect on it where it kind of sounds spacey, kind of like this wow. It's kind of interesting filtering to it, the oscillation there. So it's not just that we can sing and that we have these really engaging melodies and these harmonies per like the later choruses and stuff like that, which to be fair, I think was important there. I would have, if we hadn't had we might have had those harmonies earlier, but we needed them at the end. And I think if we hadn't had those, we definitely would have needed like an alternate lead instrument. But we're sticking with relatively, to be fair, this is a two-piece. We're sticking with relatively minimalist compositions here that are effective primarily because the actual instrumental parts are so compelling. But yeah, vocal technique solid. We sold the story really well. Distinct tone. I'd recognize this voice, I think, if I heard it in another track there. And I enjoy the fact that we're kind of keeping things unique and kind of, again, some of the legato passages were dope and the dynamic range with the rises into the notes were cool too. The song at like 3 minutes 15 is within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, which is the same as the previous track and also the same with the next one, which you're going to listen to today for three songs. And I like that. I like that we can put various sort of like, verse and chorus passages in there with like a come down, like for like a quieter version of the chorus, like a middle eight or something like that. I'm not sure. Going into the outro part there, we don't need to over sensationalize like the actual motif itself there. We have enough range with the rhythmic phrasings of stuff as well as with the various chord progressions and stuff. We don't just repeat the same bass line chord progressions the entire time. We have, I like a, like there's an interesting, like a parallel major or minor thing going on with that first part of that chorus there, which shows we aren't afraid to use chromatics or accidentals within the piece outside of the established key signatures. And I kind of think that it makes it a bit more sort of fanciful and kind of magical because of that. There's lots of sparkles from the keys there on the right hand is there and the upper register there with that bass line in the lower and hitting the mids and lows really neatly there. The drums with a hi-hat groove, wonderful focus on that as well as with some of the key licks. The drums keeping a fantastic sense of pace there with like, especially with like the main sort of like 4/4 part with like the kind of fancy extra 2 beats after, like sort of a fill segment there, an unusual time signature, especially for that intro part, which was kind of cool. But as well as with the choruses, to be fair, we played around with time signatures in a way that was kind of progressive sounding. But ultimately, I also think that's testament to how a lot of the music in the 60s and 70s was. It was arguably a lot more explorative, and I like the fact that we're continuing with that here. This is clearly well-written music and it's well performed there, and I think just it's the tones and textures as well as the note choices and the unpredictable chord progressions and time signatures that make this track appealing. But the theme itself is just also really kind of peaceful and sparkly, and there aren't any harsh edges in this or anything like that, and I adore it. I think it's another well-written and well-performed track without a note out of place. The structuring as well, again, I've mentioned about the lead light, but we didn't need it because of the harmonies. The studio production is tight. I don't think there's a note out of place. And again, I like the vocal filtering with the phasing. I thought that was kind of dope. But now I've got track number 3 for today, Waiting. Put that art up. Oh, more keys, nice. Great stuff.
Keep waiting for the right time for my heart to come to life. My melodies are different, my life has changed, but my heart remains the same.
We navigate those notes so effortlessly. great space for the piano motif afterwards.
Maybe it's only me getting in my way. Maybe it's only me. Maybe I can't change. Nothing is working. Nothing is changing. No, and it's so messed up. Like waiting.
Absolutely.
at a bus stop. The world keeps moving and changing while I'm still waiting.
And we never get too much of it either. There's constant change, which I appreciate.
So I retrace my steps again. Is this the start or just the end? And it's so messed up. I'm waiting at a bus stop. So I'll stop moving and changing. I can't keep waiting for my moment to shine.
Great feel there.
I'm waiting at a bus stop. I'll stop moving and changing. I won't keep waiting.
No, I mean, clearly that wasn't a particularly super happy, upbeat track, but I don't think it needs to be in order to be good. Waiting by Discovery, what I think it's about, I think it's about someone who is, they're waiting for their moment. They've been waiting for a while. They feel like they've been just like sitting by on that bus stop and going, okay, when is the bus going to come? When is it going to occur? I think eventually and inevitably they get to a point where they're like, you know, we just can't keep waiting for this bus. We're going to try and make our own movements here. You know, we're going to try and find something else to do this. You know, and I think there's a sense of desperation for the through the performance vocally. The singer, especially calling out in those chorus sections there, like, you know, they seem like they really want that lift, that ride, but it's just, there's just the struggle and anxiety about it. Like they're really kind of coming to grips with the reality of the situation, and maybe their dreams are a bit more sort of like complicated. There's a few extra steps than they thought, etc. Or maybe they were at a point where that wouldn't occur at all. I'm not sure, but either way, really compelling story. Again, similar comments to previous tracks about the vocal quality there. Clearly, the lady can sing, and just we absolutely smashed it. I think that the authenticity of the expression of the performance was on point. Note choices again, navigating some of the more sort of complex key parts really well, and in a way where we sort of were distinct and texturally consistent throughout. So well done. Really solid vocal performances across these three tracks. The piece itself is 3:39, so again, it's within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot there. And predominantly it was like piano, bass, and drums. What I appreciated about this track is that it was not just piano the whole time, but it also wasn't drum bass the whole time. I think because I was used to either or on the previous tracks, and they did both incredibly well, I wasn't necessarily expecting there to be a bit of both in this one, or to kind of bring things up in that like halfway point there. But I appreciate it. It's just a really sort of simple, effective way to elevate a track and to continue to keep it fresh by adding extra instruments as you go along. So I think in that respect, they did things very, very well, and I'm happy with it. Like the piano parts were kind of unconventional as well, and I enjoyed the fact that we tried to not only sort of include chords that would be typical of the key signature, but also we included some sort of parallel or chromatic notes as well there to illustrate a bit of sort of like chromatic shift there, like kind of like how we're kind of tumbling or something like that. I kind of like that as well. There were different sort of ideas or bass lines for the different verse and chorus sections, I think, to reflect different moods as well there. But we never got too dark with it. I think part of that was the production, but a lot of the kind of tension and drama came from the vocal performance anyway, so you had that as a vocal point there. Just when there was like a triplet groove going, da 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 da, kind of like doing a slow dance with your own destiny there on the rides and everything like that, with some interesting sort of snare and kick patterns there, and the bass line highlighting the bass lines of the piano parts there in a way that was very respectful and in the frequency spectrum. Yeah, but the piece was more of a journey we went through to figure out if the person was going to actually find a way to get beyond that bus stop, and we never actually, I think, figured out if we did. There wasn't a specific happy major resolution there, so I think that's an interesting way to end it as well. We don't always need to have a happy ending in order for it to be satisfying. It makes you think a bit more when it's a bit like that, when it's not like that. But ultimately, yep, same comments as previous, studio production. I'm going to talk about this more in the overall conclusion in a moment, but I just also wanted to give each track its own sort of time to shine as well. The studio production is absolutely sick, well handled, no complaints. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of these tracks from an act named Discovery titled A Knock at the Door, Night Stop 3, and Waiting. Just to quickly sort of like clarify, A Knock at the Door, I thought that was initially about someone who was people thought that was like a monster or like a threat or something like that, and they were just lonely and they never got the support that they needed from these people around them and everything like that. And maybe people came knocking at the door and stuff like that, and they had a temper, and then basically what happened is there was a fire, and now what happened is everyone got hurt and things sort of lost completely, and they just left with the cold afterwards. So clearly that was a bit of a sadder story there. Night Stop 3, I wasn't entirely sure about that one. I thought Night Stop 3 was about sort of like someone like dreaming or staying in a place and going to sleep and going to explore the stars and everything like that, and inviting someone else to join them. I kind of feel like I misinterpreted that one a little bit, but that's my best guess at this point. And then Waiting, of course, is about someone who is specifically waiting for their chance, their moment to shine, and then they're kind of sitting at that bus station waiting for their bus to come, but they're not sure if it's ever going to happen. So it was an interesting selection of songs that we had here. Ultimately, I feel as if each of them were well handled and quite effective. And when I listen to this track, I think, what could we possibly have done to improve? Well, I mean, I typically don't review the lyrics anyways. I prefer, just because I'm not as good as reviewing like stories as I am with the music, but I think the stories were compelling. The vocal performance across the bat was consistently top notch. I'm really satisfied with the way that we handled things on the mic there. We had a style that we were comfortable with, and that was continued through all three tracks there in a way which was very sort of soothing and poignant and clear in the mix. Like in Waiting, it just at that 20-second mark, boom, it just came in, and it was nicely notched on top of the piano line, which was a little bit lower in the frequency spectrum than it, like an octave below or something like that on the right hand there, and it just staged so well in instrumental layers. And we had great vocal technique, very comfortable with the hidden chest voice there, nice legato passages, some melodic tails and stuff like that, which were kind of cool. And we had some interesting harmonies as well on some of the tracks on the sides there, where we knew to sort of like keep the interest by adding those layers as like a variation sort of tactic there. I think that it was nice also to allow the instrumental motifs to have their charm shine as well, so I'm glad we had that self-awareness to not be singing all the time, but we did suit very well as a focal point for these three songs. And the words came through clearly. We that was tight as well. These tracks were typically about 3.5 minutes in length, which is within a 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, so I appreciate the fact that they weren't too short to miss context and too long to need more variety to keep it entertaining. With that said, I think that each of these three tracks had a lot of they had a good amount of diversity within their chord progressions and bass lines and their different rhythmic sort of elements there. Typically we had piano, bass, and drums there, maybe some keys, like electric keys or like whatever, and instead of piano for that the second track there, Night Stop 3, to make it sound a bit more magical. But either way, it was kind of refreshing to just have one track which was piano, A Knock at the Door, to have another track which was more so like keys, bass, and drums, and then another track, Waiting, where like we had half and half there. It was kind of showing the various angles we wanted to make music, and we were explorative, and it was awesome. The drums were phenomenal there. I like the sort of the control of the kit, whether it was like eighth note grooves there or some sort of different time signatory kind of unusual parts, and Night Stop 3 we kind of went between 4/4 and stuff like that. We handled both fills and sort of main beats really well there, comfortable across snare and high sort of 16th hi-hat patterns, and very sort of proficient across the board with the groove of things. The bass line at the bottom handling things very well, typically sort of very loyally in time to what is going on with the root notes within the piano parts and stuff like that, but did have its own sort of personality and space in the mix in a way that was quite satisfying. And then we also had keys where it was either piano accompaniment and parts like A Knock at the Door and Waiting there, where we were very sort of we were good between the left and right hands there. I would say we varied our intensity in a way that was very sort of respectful to what the singer was trying to do, and we matched the energy there and approach in a way which made sense. And it was a journey throughout. There was dynamic range to the key performance there. There were also some unusual sort of note choices there and some interesting parallel major and minor parts and chromatics. We weren't afraid to use different chords aside from those in the set key signatures, and we also had some minor parts and majors within the same tracks, as well as using some sort of more sort of like maybe some sevenths or like some diminished or something like that. Some unusual chords to sort of approach a sense of trepidation in songs like A Knock at the Door and other parts, as well as potentially Waiting as well. And ultimately just, yeah, beautiful. We knew how to choose chords that suited the vibe of what we were discussing, as well as textures on those keys to suit what we wanted to sort of have the sound as overall there. They niched nicely on top of the bass and drums, and ultimately, yeah, it was just really tight performance all around. They could clearly play their instruments. I spoke about the various themes in each one. If you want to like sort of the mini conclusions for each track. But ultimately, I think that, again, to comment, each of the themes typically matched what we were discussing in the lyrics quite well. You kind of understood the chord choices and melodies and how they associated with the feelings of what we're trying to tell. So in that essence, all three tracks are really tight in that regard with no filler, and I don't think there was a note out of place. But the studio recording, mixing and mastering is the icing on the cake there, just for more sort of like in-depth like comments than I had in the per track part, because otherwise these reviews would be even longer. My comments across the board are the same. There was no difference in the relative quality of the studio production. For me, the vocals were always pristine each time. They're very, very well handled there. Great, that professional grade recording all around on that front there. Really distinct voice. Nice use of occasional reverbs and bits, some phases and like Night Stop 3 if I'm not mistaken there. I think that what we were doing as well in regards to the sort of like the tone of the pianos and bass and drums was great as well there. I liked the fact that not only understood how to keep the piano parts a little bit lower so the singer was above it, but we also EQ'd and filtered things really nicely. The leveling in general of the mix was great. Things were not over compressed. There was dynamic range. Things are nice and wide in the stereo field. Music surrounded you in the headphones, especially some of those like kind of background vocal parts, but it was still nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression was handled. And effectively, this is just a very positive review of these three tracks from an act named Discovery, titled A Knock at the Door, Night Stop 3 and Waiting, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either hell more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.